True freedom is not freedom, guys, while land is not free. The thing I've got to see here is that watching very briefly on the convoy in Canberra with the 200,000 people plus, is that the whole system's in the background for everybody, and they're not looking at it. And the people who are up front who are organising it and talking are not discussing the very issue of land not being free. I mean, if we do a montage of 200 years of their recorded history, of what they told us from Captain Cook, Captain Phillip and all that, and when these ships arrived on this land, you know, this happened all across the earth here. What you have here is total freedom on the land. Total freedom. There's no recorded history how life was on all these lands. And all the tribal lands, everything was free. It's truly free. So if we did a montage since invasion started, we'll use Australia as just one point, but let's just say it's all across Earth this has happened. So let's do a 1-minute montage of 200 years of Captain Phillip and Captain Cook who landed on this land. And we can see this change from absolute true freedom of land to where we are right now today with convoys down to Canberra. And this quick 1-minute montage. And the real issue is that the people who came on these ships brought the system with them, the system of commerce with administration and all that. And this became the land title deeds. And this became the governments over controlling land to control man. Because controlling land, you can control a man. So all these convoys are absolutely useless, totally rubbish, to be honest. Because most people are pawns in commerce because they're emotionally attached to material things that they believe, like the land title deed, is where their freedom is. But that's how you manipulate them. So you can actually move them on a checkerboard between black and white, between black hats and white hats, between good guys and bad guys, and manipulate all these things to social engineer and change the world we're living in, because you're emotionally caught up with land title deeds and security and fear for tomorrow's security and food on the table and getting kids through school. But all of this is total fiction. And it's just in our heads. And we're being manipulated. And now, the thing is, everybody's working. There will be the tiny few who are not, but everybody's working. And the system is basically discriminating against everyone. So it doesn't matter whether you have a land title deed or not. And now the fear is, oh my God, I'm going to lose my house if we go to a world with where there's no laws anymore to protect these land title deeds and all that. But this is what we have to do, because everyone's been discriminated against. It doesn't matter who and what the people are in the system. They're working. They're all working to have fictional dollars, to have access to food, fictional dollar access to water, fictional dollars access to land, fictional dollars have access to shelter. And this is all these people that came on the ships and brought the system to become the middlemen between man and land, between you and me, between race, culture, creed, title, standings, and all the wars that are played out to manipulate us, to keep us so distracted, leading to the corona situation today, out of 9/11 and London 7/7 bombings and Port Arthur massacre and all the other things that have been going down. But right now, this whole thing with coronavirus was never about the virus. It's about land being free, and you never being free with land, and never having that freedom with land. Because when you have that freedom with land, you don't have to wake up to the clock. You don't have to wake up to debt and mortgages and bills and all these things. But you're left with full responsibility for your life and caring and nurturing for the magnificence and abundance of life that was here before the invasions began on all the lands. The children weren't brought up in dark ages where all this was hell. You had to be brought up in the dark ages amongst magnificent rivers and mountains and valleys and total freedom and space. We didn't have overpopulation like that. This is all brought out by the manipulation that's created cities and suburbs and brought people into the cities and suburbs, into like pigsties and tiny little chook cages. We call them suburbs, and you're all locked up in land title deeds. Now you all got to work to have money, and all of you are spoon-fed, and you now got to go to the shops to buy spoon-fed consciousness, spoon-fed freedom, spoon-fed truth, spoon-fed convoys in Canberra, spoon-fed this and that. But your head is just constantly being done over with, because you're not free on land. And if you're not free on land, you have no real freedom. No matter what is spoken by who and whatever, there is no freedom, unless you truly have freedom on land, to create your dreams unique to you. And if you have that responsibility to live amongst abundance and magnificence, why would you want to look over the fence of what somebody else has got? Your conscience is so enriched. You're so content. It's not to say you're staying inside a block of land and you're content. The freedom is that you don't have anything defined that's enclosing you and suppressing you and forcing you, coercing you, manipulating you to have to go to earn fictional dollars. So you can have access to some piece of land, be able to have a car that you drive to the mountains, that we're wrecking for the car, that we have to have freedom to do whatever we do to go to the shops. These are not freedoms, guys. This is choice in a slave system where you have no freedom on land. Because if you have freedom on land, and if we go back to pre-invasion, there were food forests everywhere. It was magnificence everywhere. And things are so enriched because you've been brought up by this nature, this beautiful nature. You're not living in scarcity and mediocrity. You're not thinking about coveting other people because you already got it all. And this is the manipulation. And this is what you've got to watch out. We all got to watch out. We have to bring back the freedom to the land for everybody. And to disperse this condensed suburbs and cities and things. We've got to break it all down. Give people space to have their true lives. And when you're working together in small little groups, caring for each other, and you live for the greater good of those around you, you raise each other up. You're raising each other up. And you make sure that the best of everything is there for everyone, so no one's gone without. And when we live like that you have true freedom. Because no one's going to be looking at your missus and wanting to sleep with her or vice versa. You're not going to be coveting anything. You're not going to be worrying about stealing and fighting all that, because you're in true contentment, true peace and calm, true freedom on land, because that's what we are. I mean, what are we without land to be responsible for? I mean, if we don't have that responsibility, what are we? Useless food eaters? Are we scum? Are we something to be treated like crap? The truth is that with that full responsibility, not limited, because in the system it's limited responsibility, limited liability, but in true freedom on land, it's full responsibility, full liability for everything you think, feel, and do. You're responsible not to do harm, not to harm anybody, anywhere, anytime. And when you have that kind of moral obligation and conscience in place, and it's upheld, you'd never seek to harm anyone. And so you make sure that everything of the best, everything around you, in your family, in your tribe, and your connections, all got that. And so now we are the sun that's shining out. We're selfless. And so the light of our true love for life is radiating everywhere. And it's a natural thing. You don't need to teach children to do this. It's a natural thing. It's like you don't have to teach a puppy dog what it is to be a dog before the puppy dog can grow to become a dog. It's already built in. We've all got everything built in naturally. We already are the doctor. We are the judge. We are the jury. We're everything. Everything of the system. Everything. But we're fully responsible. So the buck stops with each of us. And not to play up this game. And running around now in convoys and Canberras and all this manipulation with the coronavirus is to social engineer a cashless world of social credit under quota. And you'll have no freedom on land still because you'll be answerable to somebody else. When you have freedom on land, you're not answerable to anybody unless you do harm. And if you harm nature, you're harming your family and your tribe and your children. You're harming even your brothers and sisters across the other side of it, because we all breathe the air. We all drink the water. We all live with the land and creatures, and the harms and thoughts are in the breath that we breathe out. And that breath that we breathe out contains our intentions in them, and other people can feel it and sense it. So when you have horror thoughts and horror attitudes and malevolent intentions, other people can pick it up and be affected. Because that's how big the responsibility is when you live under full responsibility. And this makes us godlike. This makes us all sons of God, if you want to use Christian modalities here. But you have to have freedom on land. You must be free. You can't have freedom when you go into church under a commercial system. Because if you peel back the church like peeling back an onion, it's the system with its commerce and all its administration and all its statutes and laws and rulings that come with it. This is what they brought on their ships. It's the same if you peel back the mosque, peel back the synagogue, peel back what do you call the Muslim temples, the mosques, sorry. And if you peel back even the New Age temples and the Buddhist temples and whatever, you find the system Everyone's defaulting the system. Peel back the convoy. It's the system. Everybody's going to go home under administration and control because you've let other people still administrate power over you. And so when they say, oh, we love you all Australians, you're all wonderful people, we care about you all. They don't. They don't. Because you're still a slave in a world of commerce, living in fear, fear of loss, fear of everything, fear of having what you need, and then the fear of not letting it go. So you have this greed and selfishness, and so the good hearts of all of us who want to come together go, whoosh, chaos, whoosh, chaos. And this is the insanity of the world we live. It's freedom on land, and that's where our focus should be, and only ever should be. If you don't deal with this and free this up, then we don't ever have freedom. And whatever we're thinking and believing is all bullshit. It's all garbage. You got nothing. Absolutely nothing. You're just a slave in a slave system with feel good, feel right, modalities spinning in your head, but that's all been put in there as part of the synthesis of making you a drone, a happy slave, when you don't actually have it at all. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, how many land title deeds you have. You've got a world of people out there who are all slaves, who are all suffering because they don't have those skill sets or the desire to manipulate and control others to get ahead and have land title deeds. I mean, today in Sydney, you've got like one of the wider areas outside of Narellan, you're paying $1.1 million now for a house. Now, how many kids are going to earn $1.1 million today out of the population of 100% of kids? You'd be lucky not even 3 or 4% are going to achieve that in a lifetime unless they receive an inheritance or receive support in some other way. So all this is diminishing. All the most important things of land, food, water, and shelter, all the good quality of it is becoming more expensive. It's becoming removed. And so this will lead to social credit because something has to be done, because while people don't have all the basics of life and they're not secure, they're looking over the fence at what you've got. And that's what they want. Because they need a reason. They need something huge to cause a social credit world, a one world system where everything's based on quota, where you will have people who connected, like the Star Trek Federation. If you ever watched Star Trek, who was this Federation in the background? Even though at the foreground of Star Trek there's no money and they don't live in that world and they're all saying we all changed, we all got away from it, there's still this Federation in the background, which means they have key people in every area where you're living, making sure you're meeting your quota, that you are answerable. This is bullshit. That's not freedom, guys. This is pure, ultimate slavery of the greatest kind that you could ever imagine. So we can talk about anything. I mean, all the videos that I've been putting out for all these years, you can go and dive into more. It all means nothing. Even this video means nothing if you don't take responsibility and remove the land from these administrators, from these people who think they've got power and control over you, because they've got nothing. They have no authority. Their God is a fiction. Everything they rely on is fiction. Everything of the whole system is fiction. And fiction is not reality. And fiction is what we were brainwashed into, what you were synthesized to believe that this is the best we can be and how we can live. But none of it is true. The only thing that matters is that you, as a child, all of us as children, been brought up by nature to experience the magnificence and the abundance of nature that has never been corrupted. It's never been affected. And we, the elders, we're the custodians, we're the caretakers to make sure that the children have not had their futures been threatened. So going to all these convoys and running around under common law is all garbage, guys, because common law is not your law. Common law was the law in their claimed Middle Ages of feudalism and manorialism, of serfs and commoners. And remember, and these are the critical things to mention to wind up this video. Up to 1780 AD, 99.99% of all the men across it could not read and write anything. They couldn't grasp the concepts that forms administration and commerce and all the world that's derived from the English alphabet language. And they called English language back in the 9th century the New World Language. So they planned this almost 1,200 years ago. Or what's happening today is this end time plan. So they've invaded all the lands across Earth, and we're talking about Freemasons here, who sold down to their societies inside their bloodlines, who had a pact. And once you sell out to this, you can't get out of it. And they've done this all across Earth. So the only ones who can read and write were the owners of the castles, the high priesthoods, the aristocrats, landlords, land barons, scribes, and lackeys. And it's his story, her story. And they rewrite everything. So We have now in Australia, we call them stolen generations of kids, because they had to remove them from the passing down of the word of mouth through the tongue of their ancestors to know the true memory of how life was before the invasion began. So now we've been taught about Dark Ages and Neanderthal man and dinosaurs and all these other ferocious things that have happened, and even cannibalism, all these other things. Some elements of it would have happened derived from the system long ago, where people have lost their connection with sense. But generally speaking, we all came from tribes and villages amongst magnificence and abundance. We didn't come away from scarcity, mediocrity. It was brought on by invasion and wars and decimation and brutality. And we are all the culmination of this through the generations since the invasion began. So common law is just the law of the landlords and the land barons under manorialism. So I've spoken to a few people locally here who've gone and served common law documents on the local police off the back of this huge truck movement coming to Canberra, this convoy. And I say to these people, do you comprehend what you're doing here? Do you understand that you're actually saying you're now going to create your own police force? You're going to create your own administration. You have to create your own executioners. You have to create your own trial by jury. You have to create every facet of the system for you to apply this law, because you can't rely on theirs for you to apply your common law, because they're all under contracts and oaths to these Freemasons under the commercial crowd. It's not a common law of the people. It's their common law, because they're the ones in power. They're the ones who spoke English. I mean, if you were one of the serfs and commoners and you had to go and you wanted land, you have to go, please, sir, please, land baron, please give us a piece of land so I can grow some food and have my children have a shelter, have rivermen. And they would say, sure, but we want 70% of what you produce. We want to sleep with your wife when we want to. We want you to come and repair and maintain our castle. If we go to war, you've got to come with us to war. And if you don't, we'll boot you off the land or we'll kill you all. That's common law. That's how it was. And that's how it still is today. This is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with manorialism. Key people in each region you're going to be answerable to under a cashless world. You're going to be answerable to these people under social credit or through quota. And they're going to, so basically what they've done, they're going to go full circle. So pre-invasion, then they invaded. We've got this 200 years menage in 1 minute. You can just see how everything changed on the lands everywhere. And now they're going to bring it back full circle, back to almost pre-invasion. Bring everything back green, bring back nature, everything. But the only thing that's changed is they're going to have their people in between all of us, and we're all going to be answerable. And they are no different to the Knights Templars that they used against the bad guys during the wars in Palestine, against the Muslims who the Quran was created by the Roman Catholic Church and the Jesuits and all that, who created this fake enemy and brainwashed all the tribes into this becoming Muslims and Christians and creating this war. And then the Knights Templars would come in to protect Christendom in Palestine. This is the same thing now. You've got the leaders of the convoys and all others around, all connected to this to bring in this change. And it's a scam. It's all a scam, because no one's addressing the real issue of that. The real freedom is with land. And with that comes everything else that's true freedom. And if you don't have that full responsibility, you have nothing. You're just being manipulated between your ears and being done over. So going back to the serfs and commoners and common law, we have to reclaim it, because we are all at the effect of this invasion that's still going. And that's what their flags are all about. All the flags they have, the British imperial flags and the Australian flag and the Kiwi flag, these are signs of a, I mean, I don't know how you call it, but basically it's a sign of domination, of their power and control over you. And it's a Pax Romanus. It's a Pax Romanus. That's what it is in Latin. Because English language was created out of Latin and ancient Greek and that. And then when you went to war as a servant common with these people, they were speaking to each other in Latin and Greek and all that. But none of them, all the servant commoners, would pursue all that as gobbledygook and Martian talk, just going right over their heads. They would never comprehend anything. Because we all had our tribal customs and songs and gestures and things. And that's how we lived. Forever, going right back. So now we're in this rewritten history, this history And we think that that's our history, but we weren't there. Nobody else was there. And they're claiming that the Bible was the authority written by a word of God, when let's tell you that they can never bring forward any God to stand before us and we can talk directly with God, not as a man acting on behalf of a God, because this is how the fiction works to deceive you. So now we have Australians acting on behalf of Australians as heads of the convoy, talking about your freedom. But your freedom's only in the system of commerce, not to remove this lie that you're all slaves because you don't have freedom on the land. And you've had to work hard to have a piece of title deeds with fictional dollars. And then all the others who don't have it also still working hard to survive too. So there's been a disparity in every possible way. And this is why you have chaos, why we have rape, pillage and plunder, why we treat each other poorly, why we do the most terrible things to each other, because of all this social engineering and brainwashing being done between our ears. So true freedom only happens when land is free, when you can raise your children up in the land, where they have their true dreams created through their senses, because their senses that they experience is where their true life is, where their soul is. It's different from being educated into all these things and being told how to think and feel. Oh, that's a yellow daffodil, and that's this and that's that, because now you're imagining things to be true. And you can spend your whole life practicing imagining everything to be true. And that's the matrix for you. But that ain't your real life. You're actually in a make-believe world of dreams made up by others who told you how to think and feel, so you dream their dreams. So the reason why land is so important is because that's where we create our true dreams, where we create our soul. And the soul of nature, the soul of us, is the big picture. So as we've been brought up originally by all the big animals too. All kinds of, everything of nature has a purpose for what is a man. And that gives us a big picture. And from that, our consciousness is so huge and wide. And it's normal, very natural. And we would never dare want to do harm as far as, we can hold the dream. Because if you do harm to someone, you're answerable to them. You're answerable to those who are affected. But in the system, you're so shut down, your brain is so pixelated, so discombobulated and mesmerized by all these definitions that have been done to us since the moment we were taught ABC 1, 2, 3, where they taught us the spell to put us under the spell. Our head is just spinning with everything through fantasy, because we're imagining everything. And it's all pixelated. It's like a monitor screen with all the pixelated. Our head is having to recall all these memories and join them together to form the English tongue we talk to each other. So we can't hold a big picture. And we're so shut down, so gone. We don't know who we are anymore, what we are, because we're just in a borrowed life, led by your emotional attachments to land and security, where all the system has been manipulating all this time by these people, act as administrators, who brought it with them on their ships, a system that never existed on these lands, so they turned up after invasion and forced their will on everybody else. This is all you got. So that if you want true freedom, you've got to dismantle everything that stops freedom on land. So you can be the man on the land, not under sovereignty, not under some Christian flag or some, Australian, because you're never born, none of us are born as Australians or Greeks. That's all been put into our heads. We're just man, as land, because there's no separation. It's who we are. And when you dream like that, when you're brought up like that as kids, you are the bird, you are the butterfly, because your consciousness is there as the bird, because you're experiencing it as part of the creation passed down through our ancestors to us, and we pass that on as a legacy of that inheritance to our children. But the convoy's telling us we've got to pass on the system where you don't have freedom on land, where you need administration to protect us on the land. We don't need them, because we are responsible. The buck stops with each of us. So when we stand up and say, no more, go out, we don't need you anymore for anything, you push them out. Take back land. Support all the others who've been injured on these lands, all the traditional men on the land, because all of us really are traditional men on the land. We all came from motherlands all across Earth. And it's through these invasions that multiculturalism and immigration and all these migrations all came about. I mean, in Australia, we have what we call historical Aboriginals and traditional Aboriginals. The traditional Aboriginals have been on the land, so they've been for as long as they remember. The historicals were invaded and moved from their lands and forced to live on traditional lands. And so through a couple of generations or even one generation, they're now thinking they're traditional and they start fighting amongst the traditional. So you have all these battles going on. And this is what went from Mabo to now forcing Aboriginal elders to move their lands under land councils, under tribal councils, and that puts them under the crown of this administration. So they turn over everything. They've all been deceived. They've all been tricked by the same scam. Why do you think you have private corporations running everywhere, controlling water, controlling food, controlling land? Because it's a tiny few people who are behind the corporations who control it all. And you've been deceived into believing these fictions have power, have authority in their rule of law. It's the rule of law of the matrix. It's not the rule of the true freedom of man on the land. The true law is the one of you standing on the land, being responsible for your life as a conscious man and creating dreams unique to you through your interaction with nature. And when you do it like that, you do it with abundance and magnificence, because that's what we are when we work from the good heart and all its virtues. We're not living in fear and misery and apathy and denial and all the other destructive emotional stuff that has come from this invasion. There's no loneliness and emptiness and despair and jealousy and greed. All these come from you not having freedom on land. You having to wake up to the clock. You having to go to work to make money. You have to go and pay your bills, pay the fines, and have their authority coming at you every which way you go, trying to tell you, oh, you just sped. Oh, you can't park there. You're not allowed to do that. So you have them now stripping clothes off women at protests, running them naked. I don't know if that's a scam or not, but that's what I saw in one of the videos recently. I've seen over the years pregnant women being bashed by police because you don't have freedom on land. You gave it up. You gave it up to these third parties. That's why you go to the shops. That's why you're a spoon-fed slave. You're not free. You're not conscious. You've never had it. It was a lie. You just imagine you think you have it. And everything else is done to you. It's all delusional. It's truly insanity. It's the psychosis of these psychotic people who brought the system with them is impregnated all of us with their shit. And we're now playing out on the dark side of all this garbage. So the only thing we have to do is take the land back. Take the land back. I mean, Fiona and I, my family, since 15 December, we've been homeless on land. We're on our own motherland. We're refugees in our own motherland. We're here in the Southern Highlands, amongst extreme wealth, great land everywhere. There's no doors open to share land with us. And there's been a lot of bad things said about Arthur, about us, about, there was some cult. Because the real message that I talk about is this stuff, to scare people. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to us, because we speak the truth, and we are a true threat to these people. That's why they have a lot of intelligence operatives mixing in social media, mixing in freedom groups and like in Telegram groups of We're Awake United and various ones, because they're infiltrated. They don't comprehend the bigger picture of this issue. Because if we don't comprehend it, we won't know our way out of this mess and get out of it. So anyway, that's it for now, guys. That's all I can say. True freedom is freedom on land. The convoy has got nothing to do with any about this stuff. They don't talk about it. It's ignored because they are in on it. They can't talk about these subjects. It's taboo. All the best to all of you. Goodbye.
Well, hello there. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Blackout, keeper of the great in-between. A land that's never really seen. Before origins, after destinies, that's where I hang out. But enough about me. I really want to know more about you. As you can surely see, things have gotten pretty screwed up around here. Now, how did you let that happen? You did let that happen, didn't you? I guess the question I really want to ask you is, where were you? Where were you when the first cracks started to appear? When curiosity became replaced with fear? Where were you? Where were you when things first started to turn funny? And everyone began to worship and be controlled by this thing called money. Were you the designer of that? Where were you? Where were you when they formed this thing called country? I never heard of that from a monkey. Where were you? Where were you when they decided that you were a number? I don't recall you making any thunder about it. So where were you? Where were you when they started changing the schools into state brainwashing tools? Weren't you in class? No? Well, where were you? Where were you when they made the hours 9 to 5? Where were you when they just made the hours, period? Were you even alive? Did you agree? Where were you? Where were you when they formed the secret societies of infinite varieties? Were you a member? Well, if not, where were you? Where were you when they started suggesting you just take the pill and keep your mouth shut? I don't recall hearing you object. So where were you? Where were you when they first started putting the drugs in the water? Oh, and let me clarify, not the good drugs, mind you. I don't remember hearing a gurgle out of you, so where were you? Where were you when the chemtrails corrupted the air? Were you even there? Was that you in the sky? Well, where were you? Where were you when they took all of the energy out of the food? How can you eat that garbage, dude? Where were you? Where were you when they first told you were sick? Do you think it was the tainted water, the polluted air, the Frankenstein food that did the trick? Maybe. Where were you? Where were you when they took all of your possessions away? It's the banks now. Didn't you have anything to say? Anything at all? Where were you? Really? Didn't you learn your lesson from playing Monopoly? One person gets it all in the end. I know where you were. You were asleep.